Hello everyone, my name is Ms. Glass. I am a second grade teacher at Thurgood Marshall Elementary, and I am happy to be here today to teach you and learn with you. So, to get ready, we are going to do a few things. Today, with you, you can have the packet opened up to Wednesday. If you don't have a packet, that's okay, I'll help you out. If you would like to invite a partner to come on in to be your friend and read along with you, you can. Or you can just have an imaginary partner like me. And if you speak a different language at home than I do right here, you are welcome to use that language the entire time as we work together. To get ready, we are going to take some deep breaths to make sure our bodies are ready to learn. Today, since we're going to be reading about going underwater where there are a lot of bubbles, we are going to do some bubble breathing. And bubble breathing is all about filling up your cheeks so they look like a bubble. So to do that, you're going to take a deep breath in through your nose and you're going to fill up your mouth as you do that and make your cheeks into a bubble. And then we're going to pop our bubbles and let the air out through our mouth. And we're going to do it 3 times. Ready? Let's do it in through our nose. Ready? In. And pop. Let it out. All right, let's do it again. Ready? Breathe in. And pop. Let it all out. And one last time to get yourself ready. In through your nose and breathe in. And pop. Now we are ready to learn. Now, last time we were together, we got to read the fabulous book, Big Al. And as we were reading Big Al, we learned that authors lots of times teach the readers a lesson through the actions of a character. And that was actually something we added to our reading comprehension strategy chart. You can see we added right there, determining important ideas to that chart because it's an important skill as a reader. Now, that strategy that we used during Big Al when we were reading is all about paying close attention. So last time we read, we paid attention to what happened in the story. Now today when we read, we are going to be looking for some important ideas that the author, Andrew Clements, wanted to teach us from the story. So you can look for some important ideas or some lessons or some messages because that is what today is all about. So we're going to reread because rereading helps us become stronger readers. We're going to start off right at the beginning of Big Al. Here we go. In the wide blue sea, there was a very friendly fish named Big Al. You could not find a nicer fish. But Big Al was also very, very scary. Other fish seemed to have at least one friend. Some had many, but Big Al had none. He did not really blame the other fish. How could he expect little fish to trust a great big fish with eyes and skin and teeth like his? So Big Al was lonely and cried big salty tears into the big salty sea. But Big Al wanted friends, so he worked at it. First, he tried wrapping himself up with seaweed. He thought it was a great disguise, but no one else did. Who wants to stop and talk to a floating plant that has big sharp teeth? Then he thought if he puffed himself up round, the other fish would laugh and see how clever and silly he could be. All they saw was how big he could be, and they steered clear. Very early one morning, Big Al went down to the bottom and flopped and wiggled himself into the sand until he was almost covered up. He looked much smaller. When the other fish came near, Big Al talked and joked with them and had a delightful time. But then one scratchy little grain of sand got stuck in his gills and he sneezed. When the clouds of sand cleared away, all the other fish were gone. Big Al even changed color one day so he could look like he belonged to a school of tiny fish passing by. He bubbled along with them for a while, laughing and feeling like he was just one of the crowd. But he was so big and clumsy that when all the tiny fish darted to the left and then quickly back to the right, Big Al just plowed straight ahead. He went bumping and thumping right into the little fish. Before he could even say, "Excuse me," they were gone, and he was all alone again, sadder than ever. So we're going to stop here and think about Big Al. My question for you is this: what are some words besides sad that you could use to describe how Big Al is feeling in this part of the story? Take a moment to think. Maybe you came up with some words in the blue part of the mood meter and you were thinking that Big Al is maybe a little depressed, or Big Al is feeling blue, or maybe he's feeling down in the dumps. Maybe he's upset. Maybe he's lonely. There are lots of words that you can describe that feeling, not just the word sad, right? We can be specific with how we describe our feelings, just like we can be specific with how we describe Big Al's feelings, right? Let's keep reading. Just when Big Al was starting to be sure that he would never have a single friend, something happened. He was floating along sadly, watching some of the smaller fish, and was wishing they would come closer. As he watched, a net dropped down silently from above, and in an instant, they were caught. Big Al forgot about being lonely, and he forgot about being sad. His eyes bulged out, bigger and rounder than ever, and with a mighty flip of his tail, he opened his mouth and charged straight at the net. The net was strong, but Big Al was stronger. He ripped right through it, and all the little fish rushed out through the hole. But when Big Al tried to turn around and go out of the hole, he got all tangled up in the net. He was stuck. The net went higher and higher toward the bright surface of the sea, and the little fish watched Big Al as he disappeared above them. When the little fish were able to speak again, all they talked about was the huge, wonderful fish that had saved them. How great to be free! But what a shame that the big fellow had been captured. Let's stop and think for a moment about those little fish, right? How do you think the little fish feel in this part of the story? Let's take a moment to think about that. Maybe you were thinking about those little fish and how they had been captured and then all of a sudden they were set free, and maybe they were feeling grateful, right? They were grateful for Big Al, even if they didn't know who he was. They were grateful to be free. Or maybe they were feeling a little bit disappointed that their friend wasn't there to thank. Or maybe they were feeling excited to be back in the ocean where they wanted to be. Or maybe they were feeling worried about Big Al. Like, where is he? Is he safe? There are lots of feelings those little fish could have had at this part of the story, right? Let's keep reading. Just then, there was a tremendous crashing splash above them, and the small fish dashed away. Was it the net again? Not at all. It was Big Al. Those fishermen took one look at him and threw him right back into the ocean. Now let's stop and think about those fishermen, right? Why do you think the fishermen throw Big Al back into the ocean at this part? Let's stop and think. maybe you're thinking about those fishermen and you're thinking, they were kind of judging Big Al for what he looked like. They didn't know what a great fish he was. So maybe they were thinking he's no good just because of the way he looked. That doesn't make sense. Or maybe you were thinking that the fishermen were surprised and they thought, well, that's not what we were trying to catch. We were trying to catch those little fish. And they threw them back in because they didn't get the things they were looking for. Or maybe they saw Big Al and they were like, Big Al is a really weird fish that we've never seen before. He better get back in the ocean, right? There's lots of things that those fishermen could have been thinking as they were tossing him back in. And now there is one huge, puffy, scary, fierce-looking fish in the sea who has more friends than anyone else. Big Al. So now that we have read Big Al, and we've read it 2 times, in fact, we are going to do a little bit of writing and sharing about Big Al. Now, at the beginning of this read aloud, what I told you is that we are going to be thinking about important ideas that the author wants to teach us. And we know that authors lots of times try to teach important ideas through the actions of the characters. So we stopped during the book and thought about the different characters in this book. And I want to know, based on all those times that we stopped and based on what you were thinking about, what do you think the important idea was that the author was trying to teach us from this book? And there could be more than one idea, but today you're just going to choose one idea. Maybe it's your most interesting idea or the idea you think is best. And you're going to write that down. Now, if you have a packet, this is your time to turn to Wednesday, and you're going to need something to write with. So this is a good time to pull out a pencil or a pen or something to write with. And if you have a packet, of course you can turn to that. But if you're like me and you don't have a packet, that's okay. You can use some paper. We're all going to take a little bit of time right now to think about what are the important ideas that you can learn from Big Al. So go ahead and get comfortable and let's do some writing. Okay, hopefully you've gotten some time to write, and it's okay if you didn't finish your entry. I know I could say a lot more in my writing, but we're going to stop where we are. You can finish more of what you're writing afterwards. I'm going to show you a little bit of what I wrote. An important message we can learn from Big Al and the small fish is that you can't always judge someone based on how they look. Being big or looking different isn't bad or even scary. It turned out that Big Al was helpful because of his size and the way that he looked. He was also set free because of the prejudices that the fishermen who didn't like him or know what he was all about for how he looked. So hopefully you got a little bit of time to write your own idea. Maybe you had a similar idea to me, or maybe you had a different idea. But what the important thing is that you're paying attention to what the characters do in the book and their actions to try and find some of those important lessons that you can learn when you're reading, and you can even use those lessons in your own life. That is what is amazing about reading. All right, it's time for us to go into our vocabulary section of the day. Okie dokie, my friends, welcome to the vocabulary section of our day. We are going to take a look in Big Al to find some vocab words. This first vocab word comes from this page right here. When other fish came near, Big Al talked and joked with them and had a delightful time. The vocab word today is delightful. What's the word? Delightful. So I want you to think about the word delightful. And my question for you is, based on what you just heard, what do you think delightful might mean? Take a moment to think. Okay, so maybe you were looking and you saw that delightful might mean that it's something enjoyable or something pleasant, right? So the word delightful means enjoyable or pleasant, and you can even take a look up here at my picture of these flowers, imagining that you are smelling some flowers. Delicious. So we know that that's what delightful means, and to figure that out, we actually used some clues from the book. So the clues that you might use from this book, what could they be? When you were reading the word delightful and trying to figure out what does it mean based on what you read in the book, what clues helped you figure out what delightful meant? Take a look at the text and think, what clues or words could help me figure out what delightful means? Take a moment. Maybe you noticed two important words like I did. Maybe you noticed talked and joked, right? Two things that are delightful or pleasant or enjoyable. So that's what delightful means. So now we're going to dive into your mind. And my question for you is, when did you have a delightful time? You can use my prompt up here to help you. It says, I had a delightful time when blank because. Take a moment to think. Maybe you're like me and you have a delightful time when you're with other people. So you might have said, I had a delightful time when I was painting signs with my friends for the protest because working together is awesome, right? That's what delightful is. So the vocab word today was delightful, and delightful means something enjoyable or pleasant. Okie doke, we've got a second vocab word for the day, also comes from Big Al. And let's take a look into the book to find out what that word might be. Big Al forgot all about being lonely, and he forgot all about being sad. His eyes bulged out bigger and rounder than ever. Did you hear a juicy word in there? The word bulged. His eyes bulged out bigger and rounder than ever. That's our next vocab word for the day. It's bulge. So based on what you just heard in Big Al, what do you think bulge might mean? Take a moment to think. Maybe you were looking at the word bulge and you thought you were picturing Big Al's eyes getting bigger and rounder and swelling up. That's because that's what bulge means. When something is bulging, that means that it gets rounder and bigger, that it swells. So what clues from what we just read helped you to figure out what the word bulge meant? What words in the book or what clues did the author give you to answer the question of what bulge means? Take a moment to think. So maybe you were looking in that book and you noticed that there were some important words in there, like you noticed the words bigger or rounder, right? Those are clues that help you. So you might say, I think the clues bigger and rounder helped me figure out the word bulge. Great, clues can help you. All right, now we are going to play a game. And to do this game, you need an important tool. That tool is your mouth. Are you ready for it? My question for you is, how can you make your cheeks bulge? How can you make your cheeks bulge? We know bulge means to swell or get bigger. How could you make your cheeks do that? Take a moment to practice and think. All right, you can use the prompt up here. It says, to make my cheeks bulge, I might And when I was thinking about it, I was picturing my cheeks getting big and round. They looked like this. Did yours do that too? Let's practice. Ready? And to do that, I had to get some air in my cheeks. So to make my cheeks bulge, I might puff up my mouth with air, right? All right, our second vocab word today was bulge, and we know that means to swell or get bigger. Thanks for hanging on with us. Let's move on to our next section. So, it is time. We are going to close out our work together today. Now, we have been practicing all kinds of amazing things as you've been reading. One of the big things we've been doing is determining important ideas from the books that we read, right? And the way that we do that is we are looking for things that happen in the book that could be a life lesson or an important message that the author is trying to teach you. And we don't just come up with that, but we come up with reasons for why that lesson is in there or what that really means, right? We're deep thinkers here as readers. And today, you get to practice that on your own. Cool. Now, today I had the pleasure of reading one of my very favorite books, Jamaicas Find. And as I was doing that, I did exactly what you guys are about to do. What I did was I practiced looking for the important ideas in the book as I read, looking for the messages that the author is trying to teach me about life and about the characters in this book. So I read this one and I wrote a response about it. That is also what you're going to do. Now you can find this response on the Wednesday page of your packet if you have that, but I'm also going to walk you through it right now. So if you don't have a packet, you can just do it on regular paper, kind of like how I did it. So let's take a look at what I wrote. Now, if you haven't read the book, this is going to be helpful for you because I wrote a little bit about it. The first part of the page, I wrote the author of the book, right? Or excuse me, the title of the book. I wrote Jamaicas Find. The next part I wrote was the author, right? Anita Haville. Once I wrote those two things up there, I went to the next section, which is what is the text about, or the topic of the text. So what I did, instead of trying to tell every single thing that happened in the story, is I just told kind of a big idea. So here's what I wrote. I wrote, it's about a girl who finds a stuffed dog at a park and thinks really carefully about what to do next. Right? So I didn't tell you everything that happened in the story, but I gave you a big idea of what the book was about. Now the next question is where it gets really juicy. This is the part where we talk about what are the important messages, right? So the important messages are things that the author wants to teach us, not just about the characters, but about life. So I spent some time thinking about this book after I read it, and I came up with some of my own ideas that I wrote in my own response in the section about the lessons from the book. So here's what I wrote. I wrote, I learned that even if you find something that you really want, it doesn't always mean that it belongs to you. Sometimes you have to do the right thing and return it to whoever it belongs to. And sometimes that can be hard, but it's the right thing to do. So you can see that my lesson, it wasn't just about Jamaica and her finding that stuffed dog in the park. It was something that you could apply to your whole life, right? I can think of times when I found things that I thought were cool, but since it wasn't mine, I didn't keep it. I did the best I could to try and give it back to who it belonged to. And that's something that I'm going to carry my whole life through, and I hope you do too. Now, my friends, it is the time you've all been waiting for. You finally get to read. I'm very happy for you, and I'm excited because I'm going to do a little more reading today. And I hope you have a wonderful time reading. I look forward to working with you again. Happy reading, everybody.